Hello, Hoops fans. Welcome back to Tips and Streams, your go-to spot for all things NBA betting. As always, it's your host, Kokan here, and I'm super excited to bring you today's jam-packed episode. We've got a thrilling lineup of today's NBA games, and I'm ready to dive deep with our predictions and insider tips. Whether you're a seasoned bettor or just getting into the game, today's episode is tailored just for you. Stay tuned, and let's get into today's NBA betting predictions on Tips and Streams. The first today's prediction is for the matchup between Minnesota Timberwolves and Boston Celtics. Get ready for a hoop showdown that's set to dazzle with two top-tier teams going head-to-head. The Minnesota Timberwolves are bringing their A-game this season, boasting a stellar 26-10 record. They have proven to be dominant on the court, yet they have revealed a vulnerability in recent back-to-back games, winning one and losing the other, scoring an average of 112.94 points per game and sinking shots with a 48.41% field goal accuracy. They're not messing around. Their three-pointer game is solid at 37.97%, grabbing 44 boards a game. Their assist game is on point too, averaging 25.71. But they're hitting a bit of a snag lately, going 2-6 against the spread in their recent games, and they've had a rough go against the Celtics, especially in Boston. The Boston Celtics, on the flip side, are dominating this season with a 28-8 record. They're edging out the Timberwolves in points, dropping a hefty 121.17 per game. Their shooting's pretty much head-to-head with the Timberwolves, netting a 48.26% field goal percentage and a close 37.65% in threes. Where they really shine is on the rebounds, pulling down an impressive 47.61 per game, and their assists are slightly better at 26 per hour. Their recent streak is hot, boasting a 13-3 run. At home, they're an unstoppable force with a 17-0 record in their last 17 games and a solid 10-0 against the spread in their last 10 home games versus the Timberwolves. In direct matchups, Boston's got the upper hand. The Timberwolves haven't snagged a win or beat the spread in their last 4 trips to Boston. Both teams are sweating over some injuries, with key players questionable. This could be crucial, especially for the Celtics, who have 3 big names, including Al Horford, Drew Holiday, and Kristaps Porzingis, on the injury list. Taking into account the Timberwolves' shaky performance in back-to-backs and the Celtics' rock-solid home game and overall prowess, the scales tip towards Boston. They're outperforming in rebounds and assists, and their home court dominance is something else. The Celtics being favored by a 6.5-point spread seems spot on. So, my call is the Boston Celtics will not only win, but also cover the spread. Their consistent game, especially at home, and the Timberwolves' struggle in consecutive games, and their Boston Blues point to a Celtics triumph. The injury factor is a wild card, but the Celtics' depth should give them the upper hand. I'm backing the Boston Celtics at minus 6.5. The next today's prediction is for the game between Sacramento Kings and Charlotte Hornets. Tonight's hardwood battle sees the Sacramento Kings, boasting a solid 22-14 record, going head-to-head with the Charlotte Hornets, who are lagging behind at 8-26. The Kings are hitting the court for a second night in a row, with their record in such back-to-back games standing at a single win out of 5 attempts this season. Despite this, they've been tearing it up recently, notching a 5-2 spree in their last 7 matchups. However, when it comes to facing off against the Hornets, especially in Charlotte's hive, the Kings have struggled, managing only 2 victories in their last 10 encounters and just 1 in their last 5 visits. Offensively, the Kings are a powerhouse, dropping an average of 117.74 points per game and shooting a sharp 47.39% from the field. Their three-point game is also on point at 37.18%, coupled with an average of 40 rebounds per game. On the flip side, their defense isn't as tight, ranking 20th in the league. The Hornets, despite their rocky season, aren't far behind with a 46.38% shooting average and putting up 109.53 points per game. They're hitting 35.88% from downtown, grabbing an average of 41.15 boards per game. Charlotte's defense, however, is more porous, sitting at 29th in the league, Injuries are a key factor in tonight's game. The Kings might be without Trey Lyles, while the Hornets are missing heavy hitters like Gordon Hayward, LaMelo Ball, P.J. Washington, and Mark Williams, with Cody Martin's participation still up in the air. Considering these stats and trends, I'm leaning towards the Kings shaking off their back-to-back game fatigue and snagging a win. Their offensive prowess, especially in field goals and from beyond the arc, seems to give them the upper hand. That said, given the defensive woes on both sides, expect a high-scoring affair, likely pushing the total points beyond the 234.5 mark. The Hornets, despite the odds not being in their favor, have shown they can bring their A-game against the Kings. This clash will be a nail-biter for both squads, but my gut says the Kings will clinch a much-needed victory. On the flip side, I'm betting the Hornets will keep things interesting and unpredictable right down to the wire. Wrapping up, I'm putting my money on the Charlotte Hornets to beat the spread, with the total score sailing past the 234 points. This prediction is based on a deep dive into both teams' recent form, head-to-head history, injury updates, and season stats. The next today's prediction is for the game between San Antonio Spurs and Detroit Pistons. In the showdown at Little Caesars Arena, Detroit, the San Antonio Spurs and the Detroit Pistons are clashing in a duel that's more about pride than position. Both teams are in a slump, with the Spurs at a dismal 530, riding a 5-game losing wave, and the Pistons not faring much better at 334, also on a 5-loss streak. Yet this matchup is gearing up to be a gritty display of competitive hoops. Diving into the stats, the Spurs are netting an average of 111.3 points per game, hitting 45.6% from the field and 34.3% from downtown. Victor Wembanyama, their standout star, is owning the paint this season, leading the league in blocks. Their assist game is strong too, ranking 6th overall, but their defense is leaking points, sitting at 27th in the league for points conceded per game. The Pistons are in a tougher spot. They're bottom of the barrel in point differential and particularly struggle in the third quarter, both in scoring and securing wins. With aces like Cade Cunningham and Isaiah Stewart out, they're missing some crucial firepower. Looking back, the Spurs have dominated this matchup, taking 7 of their last 10 faceoffs against the Pistons and beating the spread in half. But on Detroit's home court, the story changes, with the Spurs winning and covering the spread in just 2 of their last 5 visits. The Pistons are grappling with the strain of back-to-back games, having only 1 win in 6 such trials this season. This repeated play, with little rest, could weigh heavily on their performance. Despite their own struggles, the Spurs seem to have an edge here. They've shown more fight recently and historically hold sway over the Pistons. The Pistons' current form and back-to-back game woes add to the Spurs' advantage. Given both teams' defensive lapses, we're likely looking at a high-score tussle. The absence of key defenders on both sides only ups the ante for an offensive showdown. Wrapping up, this game's prediction leans towards a high-scoring affair, possibly soaring past the 239 total points set by the odds makers. This forecast stems from both teams' recent defensive woes, compounded by the Pistons' back-to-back game and their past clashes trend. My bet: a Spurs and Pistons score fest over 239. The next today's prediction is for the game between Washington Wizards and Indiana Pacers. Tonight's showdown sees the Washington Wizards hitting the hardwood against the Indiana Pacers. The Wizards, dribbling in with a record of 630, are up against a slam dunk challenge facing the Pacers, who are balling with a solid 21-16. Playing on their home turf at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the Pacers are schooling the league with some serious offensive gameplay this season. The scoreboard tells the tale. Pacers are dropping buckets with an average of 126.33 points per game, leaving the Wizards trailing with their 115.14. Pacers' sharpshooting is on point, netting a field goal percentage of 50.55% against the Wizards' 47.93%, and they're draining threes at 37.70%, edging out the Wizards' 35.28%. On the rebounding front, Pacers are grabbing an average of 40.14 per game, just out-muscling the Wizards' 39.29. The assist stats are all about the Pacers' slick passing game, averaging 30.89 per game, while the Wizards are lagging at 27.43. It's all about setting up those buckets, and the Pacers are acing it. Recent plays show the Wizards struggling on the road with a 1-9 SU in their last 10 away games, and just 1-4 SU in their recent face-offs in Indiana. The Pacers, on the flip side, are riding a high with a 7-1 SU in their latest 8 games, showing they've got the heat. With the Wizards faltering on away games and lagging in key stats, and the Pacers dominating at home, it looks like a tough night for the Wizards. Considering the Pacers' high-octane offense, home court vibes, and the rapid pace of both teams, it's looking like the total points will break through the over-under line. The Pacers and Wizards are leading the league in pace, clocking 103.69 and 103.66 possessions per game, respectively, but defensively it's a different story, with the Wizards at the bottom and the Pacers not far ahead. Wrapping it up, the Pacers, with their solid home game and stats advantage, are set to clinch the win over the Wizards. But my play is on the total points, looking to outscore the over-under. I'm betting on the Wizards and Pacers to go over 252. The next today's prediction is for the game between Philadelphia 76ers and Atlanta Hawks. Tonight's clash on the hardwood pits, the Philadelphia 76ers against the Atlanta Hawks in what's gearing up to be an epic Eastern Conference skirmish. The 76ers are bringing the heat with a solid 23-12 record, while the underdog Hawks, at 14-21, are a force to reckon with on their own turf. Breaking down the numbers, Philly's got the upper hand in shooting efficiency, nailing shots at a robust 47.63%, edging out Atlanta's 47.01%. But in the realm of three-point land, it's nearly a toss-up. The 76ers at 36.63% versus the Hawks' razor-thin lead at 36.64%. This long-range sharpshooting could flip the script of the game. In the rebounding department, the Hawks have a slight leg up, snagging 44.56 boards a game, just over Philly's 43.74. This edge in snagging rebounds could offer Atlanta those crucial extra possessions to sway the game. Assist-wise, it's a tight race, with the Hawks dishing out a marginally higher 25.97 per game, just over the 76ers' 25.54. This shows both teams' knack for setting up scoring plays, pointing to a potentially high-octane showdown. Recent form paints a picture of diverging paths. Philly is on a roll, boasting a 10-5 record against the spread in their last 15 games, while Atlanta's been lagging, at 1-7 against the spread in their recent 8. Notably, the Hawks have been faltering at home, with a 1-11 record against the spread in their last 12 on home ground. Head-to-head, the 76ers have had the upper hand, clinching wins and beating the spread in 7 of their last 10 face-offs against the Hawks. In Atlanta, the 76ers hold a 4-1 victory tally in their recent 5 visits, proving their ease in the Hawks' domain. Injuries could be game-changers. The 76ers are missing Joel Embiid and Robert Covington, with DeAnthony Melton's play uncertain. The Hawks face their own challenges, with Wesley Matthews and Clint Capella questionable, and both Garrison Matthews and DeAndre Hunter out. On the betting front, bookmakers are favoring Atlanta with a 3.5-point spread and an over-under of 244.5 points. But, considering Philly's road tenacity and their edge over Atlanta lately, I'm leaning towards the 76ers. They've shown they can not only cover the spread, but also outplay the Hawks in Atlanta. Wrapping up, while the Hawks have home court and a rebounding edge, the 76ers' efficiency, recent form, and head-to-head stats make them my pick. However, my bet is on the total points staying under the 245 points. Anticipating a score-heavy game, I still doubt it'll breach the 245-point threshold. My final bet, Philadelphia 76ers and Atlanta Hawks, to go under 245. The next today's prediction is for the game between Oklahoma City Thunder and Miami Heat. Tonight's showdown between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Miami Heat is looking like a slam dunk for basketball fans. Let's dribble through the details of this epic clash to see where the smart bets are bouncing. The Thunder, boasting a solid 24-11 record, are tearing up the court with their momentum. Their offensive game is nothing short of electric, dropping a whopping 121.76 points per game. They're nailing half their shots with a 50.18% field goal accuracy and sinking nearly 40% from downtown. But when they hit the road, especially against Eastern Conference squads, they've been stumbling a bit, as seen in their shaky 2-5 against the spread record in recent away games. Flipping to the Miami Heat, with a respectable 21-15 record, they might look like they're trailing, but never underestimate their home court hustle. The Heat's defense has been putting up walls, often keeping scores on the lower side. However, their offensive numbers aren't quite in the same league as the Thunder's, averaging 112.46 points per game with a 46.80% shooting success. Injury alerts are key here. The Heat are down a few major players, Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, and Caleb Martin, which could throw off their rhythm. The Thunder's Davis Bertans is a maybe, adding a twist to their lineup. When it comes to head-to-head in Miami, there's an interesting pattern. The Heat have the upper hand overall, but the Thunder have been sneaking in, covering the spread in 3 of their last 4 Miami meetups. This points to some nail-biting finishes in the Heat's domain. Looking at recent trends, the Thunder have a solid 8-4 against the spread in their last 12. The Heat, on the other hand, have been unpredictable, but show grit in home games, especially on Wednesdays, where they've gone 6-0 against the spread in their last 6. The odds makers have the Thunder as a 3.5-point favorite, with an over-under at a towering 233. 5 points. This signals confidence in the Thunder's scoring prowess and the Heat's home edge. Wrapping it up, the Thunder's scoring storm is hard to ignore, but the Heat's homestand and injury impacts make it a close call. My bet is on the Oklahoma City Thunder pulling ahead. For the skeptics, consider a play on the total points going over 233.5. With the Thunder's scoring streak and the Heat's ability to keep pace at home, expect the scoreboard to light up. The next today's prediction is for the game between Houston Rockets and Chicago Bulls. Tonight's showdown is set to be a scorcher as the Houston Rockets swoop into the Windy City, locking horns with the Chicago Bulls. We're looking at a nail-biter with the Rockets, sporting a 18-27 record, squaring off against the Bulls at 17-21. Both teams are hungry to turn their season around, stepping onto the hardwood with fire in their eyes. Diving into the stats, the Rockets have a mixed track record but hold a slight upper hand in scoring, averaging 112.47 points per game, just over the Bulls' 109.11. They're also a touch more accurate from the field, boasting a 46.37% shooting rate against the Bulls' 45.39%. Beyond the three-point line, the Rockets shine brighter, netting 37.03% to the Bulls' 35.52%. On the boards, Houston's averaging 44.88 rebounds per game, out-rebounding Chicago's 43.19. Yet, the Bulls bring a tighter defense to the table, a crucial element in tonight's game. The Rockets have been a roller coaster lately. They've exceeded scoring expectations in 5 of their last 7 games, but their road game is shaky with a 3-11 record in recent away matches. They fare better against Eastern Conference teams, surpassing scoring totals in 7 of their last 10 encounters. But when it comes to games against Central Division rivals, they're only 2-6 against the spread. The Bulls are showing a comeback spark. They've been strong against the spread, with a 14-5 record in recent games. Their home court has been a defensive fortress, keeping scoring low in their last 6 home games, but they've stumbled against the Rockets in Chicago, winning just 2 of their last 7 matchups. Their performance on Wednesdays also raises eyebrows, having a 3-10 record on this particular day. Injuries are a game-changer here. The Rockets are missing Dylan Brooks and Tari Eason, while the Bulls are without Lonzo Ball and Torrey Craig, shaking up their game plans. The odds lean towards the Bulls with a 4-point advantage and a 216.5 point over-under. But considering the Rockets' scoring prowess and their track record in Chicago, they're looking good to beat the spread. The Bulls' home defense and spread record are formidable, but Houston's offense might just tip the scales, especially with the Bulls' midweek struggles. Wrapping it up, the Bulls have the home edge and a solid spread record, but the Rockets' offensive dynamism and their history in Chicago position them as strong contenders to beat the spread. brace for an offensive showdown, with the Rockets likely snatching a close victory. My money is on coach Ime Udoka and the Houston Rockets to beat the spread and maybe clinch the win. The next today's prediction is for the game between New Orleans Pelicans and Golden State Warriors. Tonight's game is shaping up to be a slam dunk of a showdown as the New Orleans Pelicans soar into Golden State Warriors turf. With a scoreboard of 22-15, the Pelicans are flying high, but don't sleep on the Warriors, boasting a tally of 17-19, especially when they're playing on their home court. Let's dribble through this matchup and see where the smart hoops bets lie. The Pelicans, dropping an average of 115.31 points per game with a solid shooting average of 48.09% and nailing 37.38% from downtown, are really bringing the heat on offense. Their board-crashing game is strong too, snagging 44.33 rebounds per game and dishing out 26.25 assists per game, showing some top-tier team play. However, they need to keep an eye on the Warriors' home court stronghold, as their track record there isn't great, with just one win in their last 6 visits. Meanwhile, the Golden State squad is slightly ahead with 117.11 points per game, although their shooting average is a bit lower at 46.35%. Their three-point game is pretty much head-to-head with the Pelicans at 37.13%. They out-rebound and out-assist the Pelicans, pulling down 46.49 rebounds and making 28.06 assists per game. This could mean the Warriors dominate the glass and move the ball like champs, crucial in a neck-and-neck battle. Injury updates are game deciders, and this time they're a big deal. The Pelicans might miss the firepower of Zion Williamson and Jose Alvarado, shaking up their strategy. The Warriors are feeling the heat too, missing Chris Paul, Draymond Green, and Gary Payton. This could tilt the scales, especially in defense and on-court leadership. Looking at past games, it's a mixed bag. The Pelicans have been covering the spread in 4 of their last 5 games, but against the Warriors, they're 1-5 against the spread in recent matchups. The Warriors, though tough on their home ground against the Pelicans, have had a shaky run, going 2-4 against the spread in their last 6. The odds makers favor the Pelicans slightly, with a 1-point lead and an over-under of 233.5 points. Given the Pelicans' recent rhythm and the Warriors' injury list, this seems about right. But don't count out the Warriors' home court magic and their track record against the Pelicans in Golden State. Betting odds are leaning more towards a Pelicans victory, likely due to their recent performance and the Warriors' injury woes. But NBA games are unpredictable, and the Warriors' knack for scoring and assisting keeps them in the game. Wrapping up, this game's going to be a nail-biter, with both teams having their strengths and weaknesses. The Pelicans have the offensive edge and seem to be in better form, but the Warriors' rebounding and home court prowess make them a force to reckon with. Weighing all factors, including injuries and stats, I'm leaning towards the New Orleans Pelicans to take this one and cover the spread. Their offensive efficiency and current form, along with the Warriors' key absences, tip the balance in their favor. It's a tough call, but my bet is on the New Orleans Pelicans to clinch this win. The next today's prediction is for the game between Denver Nuggets and Utah Jazz. Kicking off with the Denver Nuggets, their scoreboard lights up with an impressive tally of 26 victories versus 12 defeats, highlighting their dominant run this season. They're lighting it up offensively, dropping an average of 116.08 points per game, supported by a sharpshooting field goal average of 49.46%. From downtown, they're nailing 37.41% of their threes, showcasing their range. On the boards, and in dishing out dimes, they're solid with 44 rebounds and 29.71 assists per game, underlining a team that plays both ends of the court well. Switching gears to the Utah Jazz, they're holding their own with 18 wins and 20 losses. Their scorecard shows 114.59 points per game, a smidge below the Nuggets. In terms of shooting, they're at a field goal percentage of 45.98%, and three-point land isn't much better at 34.74%, showing they've got some work to do. But in the rebounding department, they're bosses, pulling down 46.43 per game, and they're dishing out a respectable 27.51 assists per game. Looking at their head-to-heads, the Jazz have had the upper hand, especially on their home turf in Salt Lake City. The Nuggets haven't snagged a win in their last 5 road games against them, often failing to beat the spread in these showdowns. This, combined with the Jazz's stellar record at home this season, including a 5-0 straight up in their recent homestands, spells a significant home court edge. On the injury front, the Nuggets are without Julian Strawther, while the Jazz are at full strength, a key factor in this clash. Analyzing the trends, the Nuggets are on fire with 9 wins in their last 11 games but have stumbled with a 2-8 record against the spread when facing the Jazz. Their recent road trips to Utah haven't been successful either. The Jazz, on the other hand, have been solid against the spread lately, going 8-2 in their last 10 games, and they've been unbeatable at home. The opening betting lines had the Nuggets as 6.5-point favorites, with the over-under at 237.5 points. Keeping an eye on the odds shift is key to gauge where the bettor's confidence lies. My prediction, this is going to be a nail-biter. The Nuggets' scoring prowess is top-notch, but the Jazz's stronghold at home and their recent dominance over Denver and Salt Lake City are huge factors. The Jazz's consistency on their court and their knack for covering the spread against Western Conference rivals tip the scales in their favor. Wrapping it up, while the Nuggets have been strong on the road, the Jazz's home court mastery and their historical edge over Denver and Salt Lake City tilt the prediction their way. I'm banking on the Utah Jazz not just to cover the spread, but to take the win in this face-off. Expect the total points to hover around the under, given the Jazz's trend of keeping scores low at home. My money goes on the Utah Jazz to cover the plus 7-point margin. The last prediction for today is for the matchup between Toronto Raptors and Los Angeles Clippers. Tonight's face-off between the Toronto Raptors and the Los Angeles Clippers is shaping up to be a real nail-biter. The Raptors, currently sitting at 15-21, are hitting the Clippers' court, who boast a more impressive 23-13 record. The Raptors are up against it, facing a back-to-back game scenario where they've historically been on the back foot, managing just 2 victories in 6 similar showdowns this season. In contrast, the Clippers have been ruling their home turf, notching up a stellar 10-1 record in their recent 11 games. Looking at both squads' recent form, the Raptors have shown some spark, going 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games, but their overall performance has been shaky with a 6-12 record in their last 18 matches. Their lineup woes, with Otto Porter Jr. on the questionable list and the absence of Jakob Poeltl and Christian Koloko, might throw a wrench in their game plan. The Clippers, meanwhile, are cruising with a 5-1 record against the spread and a strong 6-1 in their recent games. Stat-wise, the Clippers have the upper hand, averaging a solid 117 points per game compared to the Raptors' 115.00. They also lead in shooting accuracy with a 49.07% field goal percentage, edging out the Raptors' 48.09%, and dominate in three-point territory with a 38.91% success rate over the Raptors' 35.24%. The Raptors, though, have a thin edge in the rebound game, averaging 50 per game against the Clippers' 43.64. In their recent head-to-head battles, the Raptors have found it tough in Los Angeles, securing only 2 wins in their last 5 visits. The Clippers' top-tier defense, ranked 9th in the league, and their slower-paced play are likely to dictate the rhythm and scoring of tonight's game. Given the Raptors' back-to-back challenge, their less-than-stellar track record against Western Conference teams, and the Clippers' formidable home performance and statistical superiority, the scales tip in favor of the Los Angeles Clippers clinching this one. The Clippers' consistent showing this January and their knack for controlling the game's tempo, along with their defensive prowess, mean they're well-placed to outmaneuver the Raptors. However, this might keep the total score below the 236 points. My bet is on the Clippers to win, the Raptors to beat the 10.5-point spread, and the total score to stay under 236.